Quite quickly after the 2013 album release of the Awakening album, which we released through the Corner Records, I started coming up with new stuff for the new album, because the way we work, it's quite a long process to get everything in the end ready as we want it to be. So quite quickly after the Awakening release and those gigs we did after that summer, I thought that I'm starting to gather new stuff for new material. Then little by little I started coming up with riffs, recording them to my mobile phone, those ideas, and this time we started then demoing those riffs with Antti, and it turned out actually quite well. So as for the first album as well, I had something like maybe over 100 ideas of riffs and vocal ideas on top of them. This was back in the day when we were still in our original rehearsal room underground in Leppävaara, where we also recorded the first album's vocals.
Again. I see the raging forfeit resonate my dreams.
Are the ones that you have put?
Yeah.
Are the ones
You've put aside.
Yeah.
You put.
Like the, you know.
The feel of it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Like the rhythm works better, I think.
Yes, please.
Then also we gathered with Antti and Jukka and Kalle to rehearsal room to jam them a little bit.
Silleen tunnin making of ja siinä on 5 sekuntia vilahtaa kamera ohi
Quite often it goes so that then there are certain chorus parts which then Kalle creates the guitar backgrounds. And also during that phase Kalle adds some atmospheric synths on top of them, which bring depth to them and really make them work in the best possible way.
I guess it was in the beginning of 2014 we started doing some demos. We already had some songs which we wanted to develop. That year went pretty much at Jarkko's place, going through some guitar stuff and ideas rhythmically and melodically, which Jarkko already had, and we tried stuff. And
I think it was in spring of 2015 when I was putting together the songs in my old flat with these electric drums and so forth, that we realized that okay, we are starting to have albums worth of material and strong material. Then I was starting to finalize the song structures in summer of 2015, and then figured out, okay, let's put a little bit of time pressure on us so we get things finished. So then we decided that we would book the D studio to play the drums, to record the drums for the new album for November 2015. The drumming aspect basically probably takes maybe 5% of all the time that goes to this process and all kinds of stuff that's involved the way we do this. But it still doesn't mean that I don't put 110% effort, so that I make sure that the drumming supports all the riffs to the max and really makes the dynamics work right. And on top of like basically supporting the songs, all the fills and everything, need to have something to offer for the song and try to make them as interesting as possible. We also recorded the first album in this studio, and so we knew how that place works. This time also we took into consideration Dan Swanner's wishes about how the drums should be mic'd. He wants them close mic'd, so there's basically a 20% 80% ratio of the balance and the bleeds, so we get as much separation as possible. So we're able to tweak all the levels the way we want. Then I just play all the songs through with the click track. Make sure the tempos and everything are right, of course, and that the playing is solid enough. And then just play all the songs through. And also I tend to still also record a couple of like alternative beats for certain parts and a couple of alternative fills if they are needed, in case we are making some final arrangements to the songs.
Forsettaa ihan liikaa. Miksi pitää noin kovaa sanoa?
Niin miksi pitää lyödä niin kovaa?
Ihan älytöntä.
Onko se kotona opittua?
Typical session with rhythm guitars was we started around 6 in the evening, and the session lasted for 3 to 4 hours. First we looked at what song we're playing at and went through all the pre-production material we had just to check that I was playing the right things, because nothing is more frustrating than starting to play something which you think you play right or the way you want to play it, and then after 2 hours you see that, oh, it wasn't like this, it was like that. So we went through those materials and riffs together and then started recording and didn't stop until it was done properly.
After we finished those on this part, I started to record my guitars. I think we had some difficulties with our guitars. There was some extra annoying ringing sounds. We had to mute those sounds with a toilet paper.
recording for those solos and leads, well, it was quite like with Kalle, except that we went to Jarkko's place to do those. Same way, looking at the pre-production material we had, and also we probably changed few things somewhere during the actual recordings, because you can always do better.
No.
It's valmis.
No.
I think solos and leads were a bit easier to record than rhythms, because you can improvise a bit more than with rhythms. The most challenging part during recordings was probably being able to play all the stuff the way I actually wanted, and that it actually sounded good, because it's the same thing as when you sing. You can hear yourself while you sing and like, oh, that was pretty nice, and when you actually hear what you were singing, it's like, whoa, 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 this is not good.
Antti, mitä sä teet?
Soolo on ihan sukkaa.
Ja valmistautuu soittaa soolon.
Kyllä.
You're ready to suck.
Tää on vähän liian pitkältä tää sukka, että pitää ottaa tosta pois, että ylettää tänne.
Being able to produce the notes and the feel through the fingers the same way I hear it in my own head, that was probably the most challenging.
Se on niinku...
Ei ole muuta.
Se on hänessä.
It doesn't exist.
This album was different for the first one because I was involved much more than the previous one, and some improvisation was maybe a little bit more than in the pre-production phase than just recording the album. This is a little bit different than what I have worked before, because there is so tight view of the final solution in Jarkko and Kalle's end, so they adjust every detail to the perfect place they want. Basically all the bass were recorded with Kalle's home and Jarkko's home. The main part were in February and March, and some fixes after that.
So we created this vocal booth, and to isolate all the unnecessary sounds around when and while you're singing, we made a wall out of those mattresses around where I used to stand and facing towards another wall as well, and where we had the control center, so to speak. So it isolated quite impressively and made it into a proper singing booth that I was not expecting in the beginning that it would work out that well. But later on, as we were hearing the material that we recorded, it just was quite impressive. So instead of like creating something for much higher price, we were able to make it for a very nominal price.
Lost in time with this pain I feel inside. The walls around me won't ever let me be.
We had created an environment which was quite beneficial for moving around with your own vocal cords and trying to deliver something which has not been done by particularly me before. Jarkko and I, we used to spend a lot of times to understand that, okay, well, this idea is not working that way, or that idea is working this way, and maybe I should do the same idea in a certain way which I didn't do before. Maybe it would work, and there were many times that it worked as well.
From another day,
I think the biggest challenges were because as I had been very busy all the time, and I used to have very tight schedule over the year, and when I used to come to record, most challenging part used to be either I was sick some days, and it was difficult to just hit a single note even. Like there was a day that I couldn't even, there was no way that I could even record a single line. So those were the challenging days that, damn, how are we going to get the record done? Because we had set a deadline for us, and some days it just didn't work out, and then we had to postpone or reschedule everything. It was quite a challenging recordings for this album particularly, because the stamina was required to the utmost as well. Well, always as the sessions used to go by, like there was not a single session that when Jarkko and I didn't break down laughing our asses off. And then of course, you know, if we had a schedule of 4 hours, like we can forget about half an hour just like gone, like us laughing our asses off, like. And then Läkerol was important, so you know, right before every session we had to stop by to get some substances, and it was always a jolly good time to record.
time to lose the cape of the liar as the boya.
Boja! Boja! Are you red-eye? No matter what way it is, but just some fucking way.
Okay.
So I think it needs to be a way.
Okay. Okay.
Away.
Okay.
Okay. Take it easy. Calm down.
Exactly. Okay. Light me! Light me! Light me!
And sometimes, well, it was quite pain in the ass as well, because sometimes when I was not able to get the idea going which Jarkko was having in his mind, then there used to be a tension going on, and we both were like ready to smack our heads into each other or something like this, but it was for the good times.
Yeah, because we've been sitting with this song for a long period of time
But
now.
it's getting really finest.
And trust me, tomorrow when we're gonna hear it, we're gonna be like, what the fuck were we doing?
It's starting to sound very
premieres.
From this maze of despair!
And same vice versa as well, when I wanted to do an idea and I just was not able to produce it somehow out of my vocal cords, and it was just getting angry and, you know, trying to get things done in time. That was a challenge as well.
In my opinion, the both needs to be sung properly, because if it is sung properly,
They both will fit, but I would rather prefer this phrasing over the other phrase.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the only
Let's do them again now. If you want to do them better.
Yeah, that's the problem.
What's the problem?
That I have to do them again. I don't know if I can do it again now.
Okay.
Let's try it.
Consciousness!
But yeah, breaking down, laughing our asses off, that was always in every single session. And yep, Like It All kept us high. That's what I can say. There was one particular session that we had to finish the backing vocals for every single song. And then I had to come up with the backing vocals like of the songs that I didn't even come up with the backing vocals yet. And then that session went on like till bloody 4 or 5 in the morning or something like this. It was quite late. And at one point, while I was creating the backing vocals, Jarkko just slept on the sofa right back there. He was just like, you know, I need to nap out. And so we had those kind of sessions as well. Yeah, one time I remember I started to record the vocals like I put the monitors on. I forgot to put the monitors on mute, and of course, you know, I had the headphones on, so I thought like, well, hell yeah, all good. And just started recording. And after half an hour of recording, you know, a couple of verses, I realized, oh, damn, forgot to put the monitors off. So things like that, I mean, they were like, they just give you a kick in your ass that shit. First of all, you don't have that much time, and then you're like, damn it, that was a good take. But whatever we could come up with at the end of the day, it just felt good. But some crying ass moments and stuff like that. And Jarkko and I sometimes used to take a break and go to eat a pizza and just pay hell a lot for a cup of tea. Well, not even a cup of tea, a glass of tea. So, things like that.
Gaze beneath the radar, facing the falling decay. Witness the act of despair at the core of this atrocity.
Recording days usually started entered the premises, and we started it, you know, easy approach, just to, well, relaxing, maybe taking a beer, 1 beer or 2. You have to have some substance before you go there. Just joking around, and then starting the process little by little, and starting first listening the track that, okay, this is the agenda of today that we're gonna do. And then we start line by line, just trying out, like opening the voice. And little by little, you suddenly notice that, oh fuck yeah, now we're in the midst of the thing. It's almost the end of the day, and we have actually nailed like 1 or 2 songs already in within, let's say, 3 to 5 hours or so. So it's kind of like fun process in a way. Like it starts so, how do you say, you just started like a kind of like not, well, in a way like rehearsing, and suddenly you end up to the finished product in a way, like a, what the fuck happened in between?
Guess we'll never end glory. Rise into the sundown, face the insanity. They are to rule this world out. What a numbers
Joo, tolle.
Joo. What a numbers design into my life. Nobody gets their way in this game.
Stuff itself, the music in this second album, maybe like occasionally it's much more difficult than in the first album. So there were some challenges, of course, because the rhythmics were so tight. You have to keep in track, and you have to kind of like find the right flow to it, but still you have to follow the super detailed rhythmics really hard. So that was, in a way, that was challenging. But after all, when we got some good results, we nailed the shit. So it was, you know, it was win. Good stuff.
Kun vielä nauhoitan ton, se on vitu hyvä.
For example, in my previous band, Migraine, we were always doing the albums in the studio, in an actual studio. But now we have kind of like built a studio by ourselves in the rehearsal room. So it's a different setup basically, and of course it leads to a different kind of experience. But I think it's far more relaxed this way that we've done it with the Damnation Plan, because it's like, you know, there's no the same kind of pressure is not present that is in the actual studio. When the time is money, when the rec button is on, you have to execute. And of course, yeah, you have to. You're focusing on doing the best job you can do at every moment. But I think with this kind of setup, it's far more relaxed in a way, in its own way.
Why am I traceable, invisible force of mind? Rising until defined, I am to decide to love.
Compared to the previous album, I think that this second album is kind of like a more melodic in a way. All the chorus, the clean vocals, melodies, they are pretty much more catchy in my opinion. And maybe the structures of the songs are maybe also a little bit more progressive, partly, here and there. So I guess there is more of everything. So there is the catchy choruses, there are heavy riffs, some fast stuff, and some really epic progressive playing.
Revelations of treachery, of conquering divine.
For me, I feel like the most essential difference is the, I don't know, this certain feeling of the melodies itself. So to me, this is far more melodic album in its own way. And also in the previous album, it was like more like this it was more like Asim sang all the choruses and I did all the verses, all the rough stuff. It was like more divided in that sense. But in this album, it's more like Asim is singing also some verses, some harsh stuff as well a little bit, and I'm also doing some more cleans as well. So it's more like blended in together in some way. Funny thing was that that we did all these occasions like vocal recordings and the for example guitars in so different sessions from each other. So I feel like we didn't actually see, or at least I didn't see the, for example, the guitar players for many months or anything. But in the end, everything sounds quite seamless, and it sounds like complete actual product.
What policies and of doom far beyond this life, and all the reasons we declined, they come to me now, destroying all our peace of mind.
The first album's keyboards were recorded by Jussi Kulomaa in MSTR studios in Tampere, but for this album we got Jari Pailamo to play the keyboards. We started the keyboard recording process quite late. It started basically in the beginning of 2016 when we were already in the middle of the recording process completely. But then Jari quite soon picked it up, our style, and things started moving along, and then eventually he recorded all the main keyboards to the album.
One day Asim asked me by messaging me that if I would be able to do the keyboard tracks for the next album of Damnation Plan. And I thought that would be wonderful. And I said yes, and then we started working. I knew the style of the band from the beginning because I knew the first album, so I got into the work very easily, I think. The songs were good and I got inspired by them, so it helped a lot. Jarkka and Kalle sent me the bounces of the demos, and if there were some demo keyboards, I got them as well. We talked about the songs quite a bit, and the guys are very thorough with it. They are very much into the details, and we finished them with patience. There were a couple of songs that it took some time to find the right concept. I mean, the right sounds and right solutions, and then we had to discuss quite a lot about those songs, and actually then we get together in the studio and we look at them together with Kalle and Jarkko, and then we came through them. Doing keyboard tracks for a full album is a lot of work, is a lot of tracks, a lot of programming and everything, and time is always the enemy for that. It took like 6 months, all this work. I think the easiest songs were the instrumentals. They were shorter ones, and although the other one had quite a lot of tracks, but it became quite quickly and easily. Yeah, the Dio cover came after the everything was done actually, and I didn't know about this cover option. So then Jarkko asked me, how about making the Dio cover as well? And I thought, wow, that's amazing, because I'm a big Dio fan, and I thought, of course I will do it. So it was a nice challenge, and honored to make that track as well. I think it's very versatile keyboard-wise what you can do with this kind of music of Damnation Plan. You can use pretty much everything that you can imagine. I mean, there are symphonic things, arpeggios, a lot of synth stuff. Could be analog stuff, digital, whatever. There's not that much boundaries, although it's kind of clear what there should be done. For example, with my other band, I mean my own band, King Company, it's more traditional. One difficulty in the process was that my tracks were sounding at times too hopeful and too, not joyful, but kind of like too positive, and the guys wanted more dark and the sound more melancholic. So we had to discuss and redo some parts to make it right. I think generally the sound of this band is very modern, so with the latest plug-in synths you could achieve many elements that belong to this modern style. When we needed modern stuff, I often used some plugins, but many times I think the best result came when I combined both hardware and software. For example, there were some brassy sounds that I took layers from this JV Classic and then Omnisphere. It's very nice to hear the final album, because this is a big project for the guys. Jarkko has been doing great work with this, and of course other guys as well, and to have this ready, it's very nice to hear in the final mix.
The mixing was supposed to be starting in March, April, and it got a little bit delayed. We had still some synths to finalize and a couple of background vocals to be sang. And also our mixer Dan Sveno had a little bit of time pressure with his workload, so we decided that okay, let's postpone the mixing with half a year, so we have enough time to finish the album properly, all those arrangements with the synths and everything. Basically then after that till October 2016 we still kept on finalizing the synths, making sure that all the songs worked to their most, made some certain arrangement changes still to make them tighter so that the song structures would work better. But then We just got it done for the October, and then the mixing started.
During the time we played couple gigs, one gig in the spring of 2016 and 2 gigs in the fall of 2016. Was good rehearsal because we haven't played a lot in the summer together, so we get some feel for the live playing.
The other show that we did in Tallinn, we had opened up for a band called Suicidal Angels from Greece, and damn, that was one epic gig for Damnation Plan because we had great audience. The people really knew our songs; they were singing their hearts out, and it was just totally unexpected for us to go to another country and play a gig, and the response that we got was as good of a response that Suicidal Angels got for that night.
Supposed to be forever.
found this place in Jätkäsaari, Helsinki. The place was actually a roller derby place, which was empty when we went there, and we started building the stuff and started play with full volume, of course. And we were playing a few times the song, and then some guy just came from some other place behind the curtains, like shouting at us, like, what are you doing? There are kids behind the curtain and we can't hear what we are saying, and everybody's ears are hurting, and do you have a permit for this? Like, no, we don't need a permit, we're just here to play the music video or shoot it. And he wasn't pleased, but we had a good laugh.
So there was some extra nervousness and excitement because I had a fucking major flu starting at that point. But luckily, well, in a way, unfortunately, we couldn't shoot the video outside because it was fucking raining as hell. I mean snowing as hell. So we choose to go inside to this place in Jätkäsaari. There's always some challenges and obstacles, of course, on the way of doing things, and but I believe that this video shooting day was a success after all. We nailed some really good shit, and I believe that the result will be fucking kick-ass.
The music video was very intense and very strict scheduled, because I had to leave for another country as well in a couple of hours, and then we had one videographer who came from Estonia, and so everything was being done like, you know, super fast and so on, and we were just doing our thing, you know, the way we do our thing live as well, and we just tried to do the best we could. And then of course Jarkko, you know, he bangs the drums pretty hard, so even in the hall that we were at, well, some guy just came in as well and saying like, oh, you guys are playing pretty loud, and well, it was fun time. It was pretty, like, everything had to be done like, let's go, and we had fun. It was a productive day, and here's the result, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
The lives of the messengers are burning forevermore. The lives of the messengers, the sacrifice the world's been dying for. If we close our own eyes, we scar the remains of those lives.
Of course, like doing it in kind of like in this do-it-yourself method, recording everything or most of the stuff except the drums, everything else than the drums at home and rehearsal rooms. It takes a lot of time just to, for example, drive to the rehearsal room and back, do that 100 times. On top of then record, for example, vocals for a 4-hour session, take the stuff home, put those files to the actual recording projects, and then work on them. It requires quite a lot of discipline to get it done. And the mixing is also, it was also quite labor-intense phase in the process, because the way Dan Swanner works is that he mixes through email commenting. So when we first sent the materials and then also certain like pre-production guides, then it's basically just sending back and forth notes and like comments about all the mixes. So he sends a mix, then I put it like forward to the guys to comment, and then I gather all the comments, put my comments, and then send the comments to him. And we try to do this, you know, basically in 1 day time, because there's lots of iterations needed, and if the rotation takes 2 days or 3 days, then it means that the mixing takes 3 times more. So it was really a challenge to get everybody to comment in time, and then in the end I also needed to still compile the comments and check them, validate them, and then send them so it would make sense and kind of like be in line, all the comments. So then in the end there were certain issues with the guitars. Found out that the guitar sound was a little bit different in certain songs because we have so varying stuff in our songs that in certain songs certain aspects of the guitar sound became more evident in the sound, and certain small changes into the snare sound also in quite late phase. So one of the challenges for this kind of huge project, for example for me, that I was working on this album for 1.5 years soon, like every day, and then you also add the preparations or the material writing before that, then in the end kind of like you get a little bit obsessed about all the details. That is everything the right way, exactly the right way, the way you want them to be. But at some point then you need to of course let go of that, because if you don't do that eventually it will drive you insane. So at some point you need to just draw the line that okay, now we are going with this live. Yeah, there were certain goals for the new album. I wanted to basically even the vocal duties to somewhat like a 50-50, so there would be kind of like shared duties of clean vocals and harsh vocals in the verses, bridges. Also wanted more lead guitar and more solos to the songs, bring that melodic aspect more to them through guitar work. Also wanted to make a little bit more intensive album still than the last one. So in the end we got all together and the album is mixed, and in the end I'm really happy about the result. The songs sound the way they were supposed to be sounding. And now we are basically excited to finally stop this kind of like radio silence and start basically putting our new stuff out and getting active again.
I think definitely the people who are looking for a good fusion of the new metal music that they are thinking that is not coming out. So that's the kind of like streamline that we are trying to give to our listeners. And those who do have a feel for, you know, pure, good, old metal music as well, they're able to love it as well as the new age metal listeners. But the ones who have listened to Damnation Plan before, definitely guaranteed that they're gonna love this album much more. And this could be a groundbreaker in many different ways.
I think the new album is a bit faster. It's also more melodic. The choruses are more melodic. I think that Asim and Jarkko did very good work with those vocals. Very catchy songs.
From Iron Maiden lovers to Gojira lovers, they would like it, I believe. Lovers. There is much more epic stuff in there.
Everybody has been developing their playing skills, so you can definitely hear that on the record.
I guess for you guys that loved the epicness of the first album and the dark atmosphere of the album, you're not gonna get disappointed, because I think this second album is much more everything that was in the first album.
So before starting recording session, every time we had to check our mixing board, which you can see right here, that it's on 44.1 kilohertz, because for some epic reason people around here with their symphony orchestras coming in to record, you know, they had to record at 48 kilohertz. So it was very essential and very necessary for us to, you know, as we are not such a big symphony orchestra, you know, so much detail going on, we had to come to 44.1 kilohertz. And thanks to one time that we started recording a song and half the song was done, and then we realized, holy shit, why is everything going like this and that? Why are we sounding so good, you know? So we had to bring it back to 44.1, and we wasted the whole day on that. We as well needed to make sure that the gain levels are in between -3 to -6 dB, so that it just doesn't clip and destroy the good quality of the take. That was other point that we had to consider every time, so that the levels are set properly with our lovely mixing board right here. We had to put the slimes on Jarkko's drum kit also, to the snare, to the tom, to the kick drums, so that there's no unnecessary, like, resonance coming out of them. And as well, we had to cover the whole drum kit with a certain cloth. Well, any cloth. Sometimes the jackets were put on as well. So it was quite interesting as well to go through the checklist that we had. Take this plug out, take that plug out, put the phone on the airplane mode, and things like that. There were some things that we kept reminding us that we need to do just before we start to record the vocals. It becomes a pain in the ass as well, when certainly you forget sometimes to push the monitor button to mute, and then all of a sudden you have done a good take and a good worst take, and then you realize afterwards, oh damn, the monitors were on, which are gonna make a fucking pain for you later on, that hey, wish we would have done that. So it was always like we had to check 4 or 5 times. We have refrigerator as well in this place as well, so we had to take the plugs out of that so that it doesn't make any unnecessary noise. And so yeah, sometimes it's quite interesting to hear my phone or Jarkko's phone making the particular signal sound that they do in the microphone while you're recording a good take. So things like that we had to go through every time before recording the vocals. Yeah, there's this substance which is it's like a candy that Finnish people consume. It's made of salmiakki, and it's a tiny, like, mint, as you consume mint on a regular basis or not regular basis depending on where you are. So Läkerol has helped a lot in hitting the notes which were for a certain time not possible. So it used to be a ritual before standing before the mic to start recording the vocals, and we particularly Tommy has done it, I have done it, and it became a ritual that we have to consume it in order to press the record button. And it has helped a lot to keep the vocal cords moist and very flexible, to be able to achieve what you want to achieve, what you're thinking to achieve with your vocals. And thanks to Läkerol for that. Yeah, I hope you can try it out as well, and it's going to be beneficial for you too. But Läkerol should consider it advertising for the vocalists, particularly what they have in the market.
Another load